Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Michelle Stern. I'd like to say welcome back to my subscribers and viewers. Welcome to all new subscribers and viewers. I want to ask everyone, please give the video a thumbs up from now on, please. Share the video and feel free to leave your comments in the comments section. Now, we're going to be doing something a little different today, if we can call it that. And we're going to be looking at the manifesto. Now, the real manifesto that is important is the manifesto of the party that won the election. So, we're not going to look at the opposition's manifesto, but the government's manifesto. At least Ricardo Brooks and Chevanne Campbell of Nationwide News Network. Their program, the afternoon program, The Nation's Business, which is part of the Nationwide at 5. It was live yesterday, August 7, 2025, and it was a Thursday. So they decide to, and it's very important, to look at the manifesto of the JLP from 2020 and do an analysis as to whether or not they have fulfilled the promises that were laid out in the manifesto, what promises were fulfilled, if they were, and what promises were not fulfilled. And that is important. It also will be interesting to see whether or not the manifesto itself was used as a means of garnering votes to win the election, or whether or not it was a serious attempt to say to the public, this is what we intend to do, and we would like you to vote for us. And then they made an attempt to carry out these promises, or better still, they have introduced the legislation or the changes required in order to implement those promises. And so they are going to go through the manifesto. I'm going to get a copy of it myself and glance through and see what it was that they promised in their manifesto. So let us now go over to Ricardo and Chevanne and hear what they have discovered.
All right, so let's start. We're gonna, listeners, over the next couple of weeks, we're gonna go through some of the promises made by the JLP in 2020 when they campaigned for a second term and assess where those promises are. We'll also be assessing the PMP promises. As you recall, the PMP has been busy making a slew of promises in the lead up to this election, so we're gonna assess those. I think we'll take the PMP tomorrow. We'll start with some of the headline issues and we'll see where we are. Damien Corley says the manifestos are important. M. Moran says, no, I didn't read one word. We depend on you to read it for us. Hermine says, I read it. Hayworth Martin says, I haven't seen any of them physically. Brian Thomas says, no, we don't, as we know they won't be fulfilled. Those are the promises in the manifesto. Jenny says the manifestos are done last minute, and most times what is written in it is not necessarily done. Dreview says, we care about actions, Ricardo. All right. So, okay, Dwight Bonner is being uncharitable. Dwight says the dunce doesn't care about manifestos. All right, so let's start, Chevanne. What's the first item?
Well, I mean, it starts with finance and the economy, so I suppose that's where we'll start. And I suppose this one, maintain fiscal policy that promotes economic independence, economic opportunity for all, and that protects the vulnerable. And under that, they say we promote an efficient tax system, prioritize capital expenditure, and prioritize the protection of the vulnerable. I think it would be fair to assess that the GLP has kept that promise to, so to speak. I mean, the biggest expansion of our social welfare programs has been on the JLP over the last 4 or 5 years.
And let's read what they said under promote an efficient tax system. We will continue to streamline and reduce taxation where the opportunities exist, while introducing tax credits that promote education savings, investments in research and development by businesses, and investment in e-commerce enabling technology. In addition, we will simplify the statutory deductions by providing for a single consolidated social security deduction that covers the disparate NIS, NHT, heart, and education tax deductions today. So the first part of that, which is to reduce taxation, I think it's a general matter. Yes.
Yes,
I mean,
we can give the nod for
you
that
can
one.
say yes, the government has kept that promise. I mean, obviously there are some who might have wanted it to go further, but yes, they have. Introducing tax credits that promote education savings. Now, the government has never said what you should use your tax credit for, but they have given you tax credits.
That is true.
Or as they call it, give backs.
So did you say the tenor, if not the letter, has been followed?
I would say so. I think that's the second part, though, investment in research and development by businesses, the tax credits to do that, and investment in e-commerce enabling technology.
I believe they had rolled out I don't know if it was a tax incentive or a grant for businesses to invest in e-commerce technologies. So I would say that has been done.
Right. All right.
But although there was a credit, I think it was a grant, though, not a credit or a loan.
All right, fine. And in addition, we will simplify statutory deductions by providing for a single consolidated social security deduction that covers NIS, NHT, heart, and education tax deductions. I believe the former finance minister,
but it's not been done, so I don't know if we can give that one.
No, well, you see, okay, if it's in train, I'm prepared to accept it because I don't know that any one thing, if it's not done in one term, it means it's automatically a no. Because something like that is obviously far-reaching and would take a little time to implement. So I'm prepared to give a half.
But I mean, when we say we're talking about deliverables, so right, you've put this down as your deliverable
right,
for
but if
your
I see,
second term.
Yeah, man, if I see progress in delivering, I'm prepared to grant it. That's me. You don't have to agree with me, but that's me. Because, I mean, you know how the bureaucracy is.
Yes.
And you know how the system works, and the studying of an issue, and then the consultation on an issue, and then the drafting of an issue, and then the changing of a law. Yeah. So I'm prepared to give a half mark for that. Okay.
I will go with a half mark as well, because I know the groundwork is being laid.
Right.
The report, the green paper on it has been provided to the government. So we can suggest that it's being worked on.
Prioritize capital expenditure in infrastructure, technology investment, transportation, education, health and security as critical means of improving the delivery of public services. Absolutely.
Yes.
100%.
I believe we've had the largest expansion of the capital budget over the last 4 or 5 years. Over the last 10
certainly
years.
In health,
yes.
Certainly in security. Infrastructure spending has been significant. Transportation also, yes. Yeah, so I'd say yes, 100% yes. Prioritize the protection of the vulnerable. We will increase allocations on a relative basis to social welfare programs to support the expansion of PATH and the introduction of social pension, among other programs, and will support the comprehensive reform of social security. I don't know about comprehensive reform of social security, but certainly PATH has been expanded in terms of the allocation.
Well, one can quibble about the definition of comprehensive, but interesting enough, looking back, I did not realize that the social pension program was a manifesto promise. I did not remember this, and yes, this was rolled out, listeners. The social pension was a manifesto promise, this was rolled out. So kudos to the government for doing that.
Yes. Maintain macroeconomic stability and build a supporting institutional framework. We will build and strengthen the institutions that safeguard the sustainability of government finances, low and stable inflation, foreign exchange reserve adequacy, and financial sector stability. Furthermore, we will improve Jamaica's resilience to the financial costs of natural disaster. Yes. 100% yes. We will make the central bank operationally independent. I don't even have to read the verbiage there. Yes. We will establish a fiscal... Yes. Let me finish reading it now. We will establish a fiscal council. Yes, the government has done that. We will improve Jamaica's fiscal vulnerability to natural disaster. Yes,
Yes.
the government has done that. Provide economic support for recovery. We will allocate $500 million in grants for micro and community-based businesses through the Social Development Commission.
I can't say whether this one has been done or not.
The
You
DBJ...
could say has been expanded in terms of many grants and loans
Right.
over the last 4 years.
Right.
But I could not give you the quantum
right,
of
whether
that
it's
total.
500. We will deploy $1.2 billion in tourism grants to small and medium-sized operators in the tourism sector through the Exim Bank.
Again, difficult. I know the Exim Bank as
Has
well as the
been,
DBJ has
but the
done
exact
quite a bit, but
quantum.
the quantum would be beyond me.
We will allocate $3 billion in an agri-care support package for farmers and fisherfolk over 3 years. Farmers and fisherfolk will be supported with a number of essential items, including equipment and machinery, in addition to infrastructure such as greenhouses, fishing equipment, and gears, as well as refrigerated containers for storage.
So I can say this was done, but it was not done under the name Agri-Care Support Package.
So I think and this is no surprise, on finance and the economy, the government gets
High marks.
more than a passing grade. More than a passing grade. In fact, I'm prepared to say an A. When I look through all the promises, poverty has continued to fall, interest rates of, absolutely. Yes, you were saying.
There are some items here, though, that I would wonder increase bank account penetration. While they did, I think they did deliver on this promise. We will pursue low-tiered know your customer bank accounts to increase the number of Jamaicans who have access to functional bank accounts. I know they had implemented it. To what level this has improved the banking penetration, I don't know. So I will say they did deliver on the promise, but to the extent that the promise has been impactful, I can't say. We'll enhance consumer protection in financial services. I think we have to say that they're working on this one. I don't know if this one has been delivered.
And I'm thinking to myself, I told you how I look at it. If I think it's in progress and I can clearly identify that it's in progress, I'm prepared to give marks for it. But how do the Jamaican people view that? So if you promised it, you've initiated, but it hasn't come to fruition, final delivery, how will the voters view that? As I say, I think it should be a mark in the column. But how do you think voters will view that?
That's a good question. As I said, but do we actually say that voters look through these manifestos and say, well, this has been achieved and this has not been achieved? Looking back through this document now, I would say that on the matter of finance, as you said, the government has more or less accomplished many of these promises as they suggested. This one even more so. We will create a special designation of priority investments that will allow for expedited decisions and other government processes for projects designated as strategic priority. The designation will be based on a predefined weighted criteria. So I can say this was done because we do have the, what we call it, the national development criteria or the national priority or something to that effect. And that has been used for, I believe, the highway in Montego Bay as well as the Southern Coast Highway Improvement Project as well.
Justice. Stronger delivery of equal rights and justice. The creation of a human rights commission was promised. It says we remain committed to the intention expressed in our 2016 manifesto regarding the creation of a human rights commission which replaces and expands the role of the Office of the Public Defender and promotes the protection of the human rights of all Jamaicans. Promise not kept.
No.
But I have to tell you, I've been trying to grapple with this promise, for a little while now. This business of a human rights commission. And I appreciate the importance of safeguarding human rights, but it seems like a nice to have for me, not a must have.
But
and I would want the
requirement under or ratification of a UN treaty. Wasn't this a requirement?
It doesn't say here. I know elements of the of civil society have been pushing for it, but I'm not clear why it would be necessary as opposed to just expanding the powers of the public defender. And perhaps I don't know, somebody who knows can call in and talk a little bit about it as to why a commission is better than the public defender and giving that office the necessary powers. Yeah. Expansion of dispute
yes. Jamaica's Human Rights Commission is to be established in line with the Paris Principles. Yes. So this is not just, and I would say that this promise, it actually predates the JLP government. They put it in their manifesto, but it was something that was required of us as a ratification of a UN treaty.
And that was when?
That would have been, or ratification, it doesn't give the date specifically, but it is part of a UN ratification of the Paris Accords.
All right. Expansion of the alternative dispute resolution. They certainly have done that.
Yes. They pushed that, especially in fact,
I recall somebody saying to me, if that's all the Justice Ministry now does, dispute resolution. Construction, renovation, and retrofitting of courts and additional justice centers. Yes, that has been done. That definitely has been done. The upgrade of court infrastructure. I think that's a
work
task
in train, and so to speak.
In progress,
but
yeah.
In terms of upgrade court infrastructure, one would have to agree that to say it has been done. It is work in progress because obviously infrastructure can always be improved, but it has been done.
Which reminds me, the court at the Morant Bay, the Morant Bay Urban Center, is very impressive, very, very impressive. In fact, it looked better than the Supreme Court. It looks better than the Home Circuit Court in Kingston. It does.
But that's how infrastructure works,
It does.
It's always improved, and what came before it will always pale in comparison.
Oh. Modernize the justice system will support initiatives that bring the justice system into the 21st century to include continuing to pass laws and modernize fines. Yes, certainly
Dogwood's liability bill was passed. Yes,
yeah, and
criminal records. Yes, the Criminal Records Rehabilitation of Offenders Amendment Act. Yes, that was done. The foreign documents bill to simplify and reduce the expense of authenticating foreign documents. I don't think this one was done to the best of my knowledge. But so many pieces of legislation were passed over the last 5 years. This one could have missed me, but to my knowledge, that one has not been done.
That's the foreign documents bill.
Yes. Strengthening of the child diversion framework. This was done. Kudos to the Parliament for that. Investment in technology to enhance efficiency of the justice system. We could argue that has been done to an extent, to the level that the court has embraced it. Is really the question.
Work in progress.
Promote restorative justice. I think we can say with absolute certainty that has been done.
Definitely. I'm trying to find the digital copy of the 256 achievements, but for some reason I'm not finding it online. And I was hoping to use it as a benchmark, but I'm not finding it online. But again, listeners, we're gonna go through them. We were supposed to have some guests to go help us go through some of them. But we're gonna do this because we think it's important, because the political parties spend time printing these manifestos. Precisely. Nice, glossy. They have a launch, and for what? Because if people are not going to read them, why are we doing it? Yeah.
But to the best of my understanding, to so far we've covered the economy, finance, and justice, and these aspects
have been
seemingly
done. Yeah.
they have stuck to the principles of the document.
Most have been delivered, and again, you see, and that's why I think that achievements document created quite such a stir, to the point that the only thing people could find wrong with it was there was a typo and they spelled Jamaica wrong. And, kind of look away, see, I tell people choose Jamaica, you spell Jamaica wrong. But if you get beyond that, it is really hard to criticize the substance of the document. I read it twice, cover to cover, twice. Because I was looking to see, okay, what did they embellish, or, it's flowery or just fluff. And it really is hard to find things that just fluff. They really did take the time clearly to think through what were the major issues that affect Jamaicans and their daily lives.
I mean, in fact, it could be argued that they missed many important issues that should have been in the document.
And Kamina Johnson-Smith did say that was part of the challenge they had, deciding what should get into the final document. But I think on the whole, they have. They have delivered a high quality document and a list of achievements.
But this does raise a question, though, in terms of how does one now assess the manifesto promises of a party in opposition?
Well, one thing for certain, you certainly cannot go back to 2020 and assess the opposition's manifesto because they were not the government. You only can look at what they are proposing now and assess whether they are practical, they are implementable, and the value they may be to the people of the country. That's all we can do there. Now, in respect of what they identified, there are some things that I don't know myself whether or not they were implemented because the governments on a whole, they don't go into parliament and say, okay, item number 3 in my manifesto, this is what I promised, and this particular piece of legislation is to fulfill that promise. So you have to really recall or go do some research to find out whether or not those promises were kept. Of course, the documents still exist. Now, they ask a very important question. Not sure if it was in this clip because I had to edit it. Is the manifesto important? And the manifesto is absolutely important because if you think about it, if there were no manifesto, then what would be the situation in the country? You would have a government or two parties or more vying for your votes. They will come telling you that we intend to do this, that, and the other, and then you go vote for them. And they have nothing, or we have nothing to hold them to, having made a promise. And the fact that we can record or write down the promise, then what it remains is a promise. Although in the manifesto it states what the party intends to do where they've given state power, it is not a legal binding document. It's not like a contract. It's merely a list of to-dos that the parties give you to influence vote. It is true, but it is also something that they give you in order for you to measure and compare their to-do list, those things that they said they would do if you were to elect them, and you can compare it now with the other parties' list of to-dos. And it it ought to be something. It ought to be a document which addresses what the parties believe to be the issues, what the parties believe to be the way to develop in the country. That is what they think is priority, and what they intend to do about improving the lives of people, if they believe that that is a priority, and what they're going to do about infrastructure, health, and so on. That is what the manifesto does. And when you elect a government, they then determine what it is they're going to do. Remember, it's not a legal binding contract. However, if a government realizes that it has to move substantially away from what it promises, usually they call an election. So whenever you see an election called 3 to 4 years, or especially if it's called early, 3 years, then the government is going in a different direction. What they will do is campaign on them past performance, because whatever direction they're going in, if it is something that you would not likely to vote for, or they will then campaign on the past. The next time you see a government call election early is whenever you have a change of the prime minister. The prime minister, the new one, may decide that they need their own mandate, and that mandate is in the policy prescription that they are coming with to develop Jamaica, the infrastructure, make your lives better, and so on. So they will go for a mandate by calling new elections. That will now enable them to move away from the manifesto promises that they had made when the previous leader was there. You follow? So even though it's not a legal binding contract, it does appear as though the politicians do treat it that way, and we do. We treat it that way. And it is important for a manifesto to be produced in writing so that we can go through what it is that they're doing, and it can also and supposed to guide the action of the present government. Now, you would have heard Ricardo Brooks and Chevanne Campbell, their opinion about whether or not some of the aspects of the JLP's 2020 manifesto were fulfilled or not fulfilled. But I'm going to take a quick look through it myself and see what I can identify as promise and promises fulfilled or not fulfilled. And you may ask the question, why is it important? Because trust is important. It is important that you know whether or not the government had padded the manifesto with some pie in the sky, hairy fairy ideas that they never intended to implement. They only put it there in order to catch your attention and catch some votes. To the extent that those may exist in a manifesto, or they moved and deviate widely from what they said they were going to do, and you see them do something else, then that tells you that that is a government not to be trusted. And as for the opposition, their manifesto depends on the expense of what it is they're implementing, where they're going to get the money from, and whether or not it can even be implemented. I mean, if you're going to come with a policy that is going to cost us hundreds of billions of dollars, where you're going to get that money from, then we know that that don't make no sense. And then when it comes to the opposition's manifesto, even the government's manifesto, we have to look in terms of whether or not the cost benefits, is there a cost benefit? If it's going to impose more taxes, are we going to even be able to benefit from those increased taxes? And when we say benefit, we are talking about the return on the investment. Is it going to give us a positive return, or is it going to be just no return? These are the things that must be determined. So, for example, if you're going to be talking about doing something for education, and then when you finish spending these billions of dollars on education, them take up themselves and gone abroad because somebody else is paying them more money or offering them more money for their labor, how does that benefit this country? It does not. And there are some who would tell you, yeah, but them gone abroad. No, we are the ones who are paying for it, and we must receive the full value of that money that we spent, not partial. Because when we spend our money as a poor, poverty-stricken country and educate our people, and then they go abroad and then utilize the labor there to build up that society that never spent one penny towards their education. And this is where we have a very big problem. And that is why we are stagnant and can't get nowhere. And this is the reason why we cannot grow. And I've said it again. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. Our problems are not great, are not many, just one or two. And the main problem that we have in this country is low wages. Low wages. It is a difference between we and other countries in the Caribbean. They are doing much better economically because they are earning more, therefore they are able to pay more in taxes, and therefore they are able to get more out of the labor that they expend. They are working, paying the taxes, and the taxes now can go and do more for them because they're collecting more. When you suppress your labor and have 83% of your people working $2.50 something cents per hour in Jamaica with a high cost of living, then what you're doing is suppressing the growth in your economy. Too many people are poor, and therefore the way to solve the problem is to get the wages up, because the wage at the moment is being suppressed. It is being suppressed. We're deliberately not paying the people what they ought to be paid. And when we say ought to, we mean that when you compare what you're being paid here in Jamaica and compare it elsewhere, the Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, Barbados, United States, Canada. Those are the countries we are competing with. And we not paying our workers and they prepare to pay them more. So they leave and they go. And so they get the benefit of our skilled labor, and their economy and their country is growing and being built by our skilled labor that they did not have to pay a penny for. We now need to put ourselves in the very same position. Once we lift the wages to equal or even above theirs, a foreign, and we don't have to do it one time, we do it every 6 months. And every 6 months, as people get more pay, the businesses will be making more money because people will be spending. So once we bring the wages up to them, what will happen is that our people will be coming back here in Jamaica to work, come build back our country, because they would rather be here than go anywhere else, right? You would have people from Haiti and Dominican Republic, Belize, Guyana, all over the Caribbean looking to come to Jamaica, come work. So we will have the benefit of those skilled laborers that somebody else is paying for. That's what we need to do. But we have these slavers and these plantation people, these planter class, and them a whole other country. And we need to understand that we are on things. We need to understand what needs to be done in order to solve the problems. And we need to put our foot down and make the adjustments. Because at the end of the day, those same planter class people are the ones who go and benefit because of them have the business. And the more people earn is the more that they spend. Facts. So our leaders need to stop behaving like jellyback men and women and do what is right to make the country grow. There is no way your country can grow when you have 83% of your people earning below what other people earn as minimum wage. Can't happen. And anybody come promise you and tell you, say, going to happen, and this going to happen, and that going to happen, it's not going to happen. Because everything comes from the consumers. And if the consumers don't have the money, then they'll have nothing to spend. And if they have nothing to spend, the businesses cannot grow. And if the businesses cannot grow, taxes cannot grow. It is a simple matter. Why it's so hard for them to see that? They're afraid. Well, we need bold leadership. And I don't know if Mas Andrew plan to give us that bold leadership this time around. We know we now look for that from the Englishman, right? Because him depend on something else. For him, loyalties are elsewhere, right? Besides something wrong with him, in him head top. So this is where we are at. And there will be those who are able to afford to hire somebody maybe to look after the children, look after the house, who will not be able to afford it in future. But then again, as people, smart people, wherever there is a problem, there are those who use them brain, come up with solutions, and make an opportunity out of a problem. So you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry at all. Because as long as we're running our country for the benefit of the majority of people, the vast majority, then you will benefit too, somewhere along the line. Yes. This was the Jamaica Labour Party's manifesto cover for 2020. And just the visuals is important in an election where our people are asked to come out and vote. The future of our country and our people rests in the hands of those who come out to vote. They make the decision as to who they think is best to lead the country in a 5-year period. And we hope they get it right. And this, as you can see, uses the Jamaican colors. The green, the black, the gold, and they add the white as a contrast. So, because the people are being asked to come out and exercise their patriotic duties, and they look at a manifesto like this, it's going to appeal to them. They want to turn the page to see what's going on here. They are curious, so the message is already clear in the design of the manifesto. And they have elements And we are in the table of contents. What the Labour Party did, and I'm sure they did, if I remember right, in 2016, was to present a 10-point plan. Don't put a whole heap of things in there, but it was 102 pages anyway. So they have this 10-point plan. My criticism for this manifesto, yes, Andrew Holness's popularity was in the 60s, I do believe, and it was well above the Labour Party. But you are in government, and you ought really to have, in my view, one or two of your other ministers and even one or two MPs in your manifesto. Just let the people see that what you have operating is a team and not a one-man show. And that is my criticism, because I did not see in this manifesto not even one minister. Most of the visuals about ordinary people, young people, older people, and so on, and that is excellent. But when it comes to the politician on the Labour Party side, it was only Andrew Holness that was in it. But then he was a man who was popular, and him the people them love and they want to see him. So that is my thing. I doubt very much that that will be the case in this manifesto coming up. I think that based on the achievements booklets that we saw, that you're going to see more of the ministers and the MPs and so on featured. So what we will be seeing will be the face of a team of people, because somewhere along the line there's going to have to be a comparison between the team on the Labour Party side and the team on the PNP side. And it's which team that looks the best that will more than likely appeal to certain of the voters. So the 10-point plan covered building a stronger economy, and there's a breakout as to what that means. Governance, security, and justice for all, and there's a breakout. Equal access to health care and wellness for all. Energy and the blue and green economies, and they have the breakout. Building a digital Jamaica, building brand Jamaica for development, quality education for all, building a stronger Jamaican society, local government and community development infrastructure. So those were the 10 points. Now, I went through the manifesto and I scanned what was written, and it was kind of an overall, just a overall objective, aim and objective of the government for the next 5-year period, and we have lived it the full term. So we would have seen what they would have done. And what they would have done, as Ricardo and Chevanne told you, would have come from the manifesto itself. But there was something missing from the manifesto, a critical side to the economy and everything in the country. You know what that was? Export. There was no mention in the manifesto of the word export. I did a word search and export did not appear. So this is an area where the government now needs to tackle. How are we going to solve our foreign exchange issues where we are importing more than we export? There is nothing wrong with import. Even if our import bill was to raise to $10 billion, as long as we are exporting 11 or $12 billion, that's good. Because the key is that we must be able to earn foreign exchange to cover our imports. And that is not what we are doing. That's why the money keep devaluing. We have not been able to solve that problem since the world oil crisis in 1973, October, when the OPEC countries, if I remember right, double or triple the price of oil and throw every country in the world in a tizzy. And we have not gotten out of that tizzy to this day. So we have to come up with some innovative ways of exporting. Export also means creating more jobs. And yes, we have a problem with a shortage of labor, or so we believe. But consider this. Those tens of thousands of people who are selling on the streets, them ought not to be selling on the streets. So you have some persons there who are potential workers in a structured way. But that will not happen unless we are offering them more money than they are earning while on the road. And of course, once we can provide that, we can create ordinances that will get them off the road. But we can't do it now because we don't have the place to put them. So they will just have to stay and do what they're doing until them can do better. That's my view. So I would like to see, Mas Andrew, an export policy. An export policy. Never mind about shortage of labor. Labor is there. And what is more, it is an opportunity to drive up the price of labor. Don't bring in any labor from no foreign to keep our prices suppressed. They want labor, they have to pay more for it. That's how the thing works. Compete for labor. So, export. The next thing that I would like to see, Mas Andrew, you see this thing that they're talking about, the crime and the murder rate going down? I don't think we should just accept it like that. I think we need to check it out and find out what exactly was done to make it work. Something you did, because you were doing a whole heap of things, and other governments have been doing a whole heap of things, and it got down with them, and then it come back up. Of course, it will come back up because they weren't arresting people, bringing them before the court, and having them convicted. So the men were just out there on rest and relaxation. You've been talking about it, and surprisingly, the murders keep trending down. And I heard you in Central Kingston asking the people if they notice anybody at war. We don't know the reason why. We need to find out. So we need you to commission the University of the West Indies to go out and study. We need to understand which one of those policies worked. And then we pump more money into that, and the murder rate will go further down. You what I'm saying? Yes. So that is what I would like to see. Now, folks, I want you to put in the comments section, what it is you would like to see the government doing, what you'd like to see in their manifesto for the next term, and don't afraid to discuss it amongst one another, because I'll come in there and discuss it too. So I think that's a good idea. So export for me is a big thing. Now, my next big thing, of course, for I am preaching, but I'm not preaching to the choir, is the minimum wage. The government needs to sit down with themselves and say to themselves, are we going to take this chance? Believe me, there's no chance in it. It is just how it is. All of the white countries in this world, every one of them, is on top, both economically and socially. And there is one reason for that. That reason is the people are being paid the highest in the world. When them have the money to spend, people will come up with ideas as to how to come up with new products because the market is there, the money is there. So now they're going to innovate. You increase the income. Don't do it overnight. Gradually. But you have to set yourself a target. I believe the target should be the equivalent of $8 per hour, because that's what they're paying in the United States, $7.25. We need to compete and keep our workers here. That's the only way to keep the teachers here. We don't have to do all them something over here, Damon Crawford to do. Where it sounds like you want to bankrupt the Students Loan Bureau, right? Set a target. Put it in your manifesto every 6 months, even if you have to put down $100, depending on the condition of the economy, right? And you're going for a target. If you agree with me, $8, you can decide that is 10, and you want to achieve it in the next 3, 4, 5, or 6 years or 10 years, whatever you're going to set. And then every year you increase. Every time you increase the minimum wage, you're going to see that there's more growth because the money is circulating, and you're going to get more taxes because the people are earning. And the higher it goes and the higher it goes, eventually those people are selling on the streets when the factories start to open. Because believe me, when people have more money to spend, you're going to find that businesses are going to come in. Businesses that are going to come in at the higher end of the market, because now your people can afford to buy things. They're not poor anymore. And then when that starts to happen, you find more and more people decide to come out for the street and go in a factory or go in a business place or set up their own business. So the minimum wage is something that you must look at and make a bold decision. Set your target, set your period, set the amount that it should be at the end of that period, and raise the minimum wage every 6 months. You have done it so far. You moved it from 6,200 to 16,000. What happened to the economy when you did that? Do an assessment. Next thing I'd like you to do, Mas Andrew, is I've been talking about it, is an idea for a tax app, a software that will be on every phone in Jamaica. That will be the law. When the phone them come in, they must have that app on it. And what that does, those people who are in business, like the taxi man them, all this complicated something if you do a tax office, that was never intended for the small business. That was intended for business people. So you create a simple app where they can put in how much you earn for the day, how much you spend for the day, and at the end of the month, the app going to calculate what the profits are and how much you should pay in tax. And then them have a bank account, bam, then just click pay, and from the bank account, the money goes into the TAJ coffers, and just like that, you earn more money. NHT would be a benefit, and it would benefit a lot of people who may not be on NHT now because it's too complex, right? Them have to go pay and register with the tax officer. Maybe they can't bother with that. So NHT would benefit, the NIS would benefit, the Heart would benefit, education tax, income tax they will not pay. I am asking you to consider creating a tax app. And the last thing, because I don't want to thief everybody space, because everybody will have their own say as to what they would like to see, I would love to see the transport system, the JUTC transport system. Yes, it's good that you're expanding. I would like to see more buses in Kingston, and I want to go downtown and see them roll out. Because we know you have the buses. We know you have the buses because we see them in the morning and we see them in the evening at peak hours. Keep the buses rolling. If you want to get the people on the JUT's buses, put out a schedule. That's all you have to do. Create a JUTC app, a software that is on the phone as well, right? And with the numbers, when the numbers come up, me want to a 47, or me want to move from one place to the next, the app tell me which bus and where the buses are and when one going come. You put that out, and I can go busy myself and go do something in the meantime and come back when the bus is coming. You're going to find that you have more people carrying because people will wait. When you're at the bus stop for 1 hour and 2 hours, you don't know when the bus coming. You're going to get a bad name. So you mash up the bus system and nobody stays up. So create your app and improve the system, and you will get more money. And finally, or I should say lastly, when you took over the JUTC, Garnet Roper and Company, they had a policy where every month they were giving a benefit for those who have the cards. They put $1,000 on it and you double it and give them two. That was important for them to get the money that they needed to run the JUTC for the month, because people have put all 10,000 on it, and you're not losing anything because the buses are running on time. What you will then get is a whole lot of money to offset the costs. You need to go back to that. Why the hell you not stop it? Go back to that and get the JUTC earning more. And that is what I have to say. Now, everybody, you can put in your request for what you'd like to see in the next manifesto. And we can afford to ball it up because we know them risers now here, we know mine. Right? Them bright over there, only them alone bright. They man him over them, him bright. So them not went thief any ideas that we have. So feel free to put them out. And somebody might bring this to their attention, Mas Andrew. And they will see if any of them make any sense and put them in a manifesto. Well, folks, that's all I have to say on that for now. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have not yet subscribed or give the video a thumbs up, please go ahead and do so. And also remember to share and leave your comments in the comments section. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.